What happens when a rude waiter mocks a couple for splitting the bill, only to have them return as the restaurant's new owners? A story of judgment, humility, and the surprising twists life can throw your way. It was a quiet evening, and Sarah and Ben, a young couple in their mid-20s, decided to treat themselves to a nice dinner at a local mid-range restaurant. After weeks of hard work, Ben putting in extra hours at the office and Sarah juggling her freelance projects, they wanted to celebrate their small victory. They had just closed a deal on a new apartment, something that felt like a huge step for them. The evening was supposed to be about enjoying each other's company, not splurging, so they decided to stick to a reasonable budget. The restaurant was cozy, with dim lighting and a relaxed atmosphere. Sarah ordered a simple pasta dish while Ben opted for a steak, nothing extravagant. They chatted easily, laughing at small jokes and savoring the moments of peace that came with the end of a busy week. They had their minds set on enjoying the night, without worrying too much about the bill. When it came time to pay, they casually asked the waiter if they could split the bill. It wasn't an uncommon request. They preferred to manage their finances separately. They weren't trying to make a scene, just a simple, practical choice. However, the waiter's response was far from professional. He rolled his eyes in clear frustration and muttered under his breath, "Of course. Can't even pay together." He made a few more snide remarks as he scribbled on his notepad, clearly judging them for what he assumed was a sign of financial struggle. He even snickered to himself as he walked away, making Sarah and Ben feel small and self-conscious. They exchanged uncomfortable glances, but Sarah quickly nudged Ben, trying to shake off the moment. They didn't want to let his rude behavior ruin the night, but it stung. The waiter's judgment lingered as they quietly waited for the bill. As Sarah and Ben sat in silence, waiting for the waiter to bring their split bill, the young man went about his work with a sense of superiority. Behind the bar, he leaned in close to one of his coworkers, a smug smile on his face as he whispered, "You won't believe this. They actually asked to split the bill." He let out a laugh, shaking his head. Clearly, they can't afford it together. Probably a couple of broke millennials trying to make ends meet. His coworker glanced over at the couple, who were quietly talking among themselves, trying to ignore the waiter's behavior. "Yeah, they're probably just here to save a few bucks," the waiter continued, still amused. "I mean, who asks for separate bills in a place like this? It's not like they're buying a feast or anything." He snickered, feeling justified in his judgment. He was convinced that his assessment was spot on, that the couple were just another pair of young people trying to make do in a world that wasn't particularly kind to them financially. Meanwhile, Sarah and Ben weren't paying attention to the waiter's conversation, their focus on the evening and each other. After a few moments of awkward silence, they paid the bill, leaving a decent tip despite the waiter's behavior. Unwilling to stoop to his level, they stood up, grabbed their coats, and made their way to the exit, feeling a mixture of relief and lingering embarrassment. As the door closed behind them, the waiter watched them leave, still believing they were just another couple struggling to keep their finances together. What he didn't know was that Sarah and Ben had no intention of staying in that position for long. The night wasn't over for them, and soon, everything was going to change. Months passed, and Sarah and Ben's hard work and dedication paid off. They had successfully launched their own business venture and made savvy investments. Their lives had completely transformed, and they were now enjoying the fruits of their labor. One evening, after a busy week of meetings and renovations, they decided to revisit the same restaurant where they had been treated so poorly. But this time, they weren't just another young couple looking for a nice meal. They were the new owners. The restaurant, once a quaint and comfortable place, had undergone a major renovation. The interior had been completely revamped, and the menu now boasted higher-end offerings. The couple had taken charge of the rebranding, pouring their expertise into making the establishment reflect their newfound success. The location, the same one where they had once been insulted, was now under their control, and they were ready to see the results of their vision. When they entered, the waiter was still working, unaware of the change that had taken place. He greeted them with a casual smile, assuming they were just another group of patrons. He didn't recognize them at first, still carrying on with his usual demeanor, perhaps a little more worn than before. It wasn't until Sarah and Ben introduced themselves as the new owners that the waiter's expression shifted. His face went pale, the realization dawning on him like a bolt of lightning. He stammered an apology, but the couple remained calm and collected. "We actually wanted to speak with you," Sarah said, her voice steady but firm. "Do you remember us from that night when we split the bill?" Ben added, his tone equally composed. "Funny how things have changed, isn't it?" The waiter stood there, unable to respond. The once dismissive couple had now become his employers, and the weight of his earlier actions hit him all at once. The waiter stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing as the realization sank in. His earlier remarks, the mocking attitude, the judgment, it all came crashing down in an instant. His face flushed with embarrassment, and he stammered, struggling to find words. I'm so sorry," he muttered, his voice shaky. I didn't recognize you. I never meant to." Sarah and Ben exchanged a glance, their expressions calm but firm. They didn't raise their voices or make a scene, but their professionalism was clear. "We appreciate your apology," Ben said, his voice steady. "But it's important to remember that the way we treat people matters. Here, we operate on respect, professionalism, and kindness. No exceptions." Sarah nodded, adding, "We believe in second chances. We're willing to let this go, but we expect nothing less than respect moving forward. That's how we run this place." The waiter nodded quickly, his face still pale, and murmured another apology. He understood now that his actions had consequences far beyond that single night. He had judged the wrong people, and now the tables had turned. He felt a mix of regret and realization, how easily he had dismissed them, how quickly things could change. As Sarah and Ben turned to leave, the waiter stood silently behind the counter, deep in thought. They had shown him mercy, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his behavior had cost him more than just his pride. The couple, now the owners, moved on with their lives, the restaurant flourishing under their leadership. Meanwhile, the waiter's attitude shifted over the following weeks. He began to treat everyone with more respect, more caution. His previous arrogance was replaced by a quiet humility, and he learned that life's circumstances could change in an instant, sometimes for the better, and other times for the worse. As the weeks passed, the restaurant continued to thrive under Sarah and Ben's leadership. The couple's success wasn't just about profits, it was about the values they had carried with them from the very beginning. They had worked hard to build their dream, but never lost sight of what truly mattered: respect, kindness, and the importance of treating others with dignity. Their success wasn't about rubbing it in anyone's face, it was about making the world around them a little better, one decision at a time. For the waiter, life had taken a sharp turn. His encounter with Sarah and Ben served as a wake-up call, a reminder that judgment, especially based on assumptions, could have lasting consequences. The arrogance that had once defined him began to fade, replaced by a quieter sense of humility. He reflected on how easy it had been to dismiss people, thinking he knew everything about their lives, and how wrong he had been. It was a painful lesson, but one that he would carry with him moving forward. As for Sarah and Ben, they moved on from the incident with grace. They didn't let the waiter's earlier rudeness define their perception of the situation. Instead, they chose to use it as an opportunity to reinforce their belief in kindness, and to remind themselves that success didn't mean they were any better than anyone else. They were still the same people, grounded and thankful for the journey they had taken together. In the end, the story served as a reminder to all. Life is unpredictable, and the way we treat others is what truly defines us. Judging others can lead to regrets, while kindness always leaves a lasting impact.